From Tally to Cali.
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up! Wake up! Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by Zaxby's.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi
and Corey Clark.
Wake up! What up, everybody? Welcome on into Wake Up Warchant, presented by Zaxby's. I'm Aslan Hajavandi. He is Corey Clark. We work for Warchant.com. Use a promo code Warchant30. Gets you 30 free days of access to the ultimate Seminole sports source if you're not already a member. You can check out all the great work there. Michael Langston's recruiting information. We'll probably have him on later this week to give us a little bit of a breakdown on what's going on in the recruiting. And always Ira's great insight and, of course, Corey's great columns, which included a basketball-themed column, and we'll talk about basketball. But first, Corey, your well-being, how would you describe it currently?
It's good, buddy. It's good. I had a good New Year. Hope you did too. Is this our first show since the New Year? I can't remember.
It is not. It is not.
Sorry. Well, I had a good January 3rd. If anybody was wondering, January 4th. I'm doing good, buddy. I'm doing good. The sun came out in Beaufort, Georgia the last couple of days. I don't know what the weather was like in Tallahassee, but good to see the sun again. And my son goes back to school, later today for the people listening to this. So that's good, too. He's getting a little restless, getting a little antsy. He needs to start learning some things again.
Back to school, back to school. Yeah, enjoy it, kids. Suck it up. Go back. Learn. It'll be fantastic.
Yeah, that's right.
So when I was in El Paso, I also gave him a shout out, but Joe from El Paso, who lives in Dallas, his name is Fitnole, I think Fitnole45 on Warchant.com, and he tagged us in a thread and wanted us to diplomatically, if possible, to ask the new strength staff kind of, hey, have you looked at Alabama and Clemson and Ohio State, their offensive line, and then looked at ours, and what's the deal? And the only reason I'm going to ask the question that he posed is because he himself was in shape. If he wasn't Fitnole45, he was just some schlep, I'd be like, nah. But I will ask his question, and I will also add the recommendation that somehow Coach Storms, sprinkles in a little Zaxby's into the training table. They have the new Caribbean jerk sandwich and boneless wings for a limited time. Signature hand-breaded filet sandwich, Corey, with the fruity, sweet, and spicy Caribbean jerk sauce and some banana peppers, crisp lettuce, mayonnaise, the whole shebang-a-bang. Is it Caribbean or Caribbean in Beaufort, Georgia? How do you guys pronounce it?
Corey Clark pronounces it Caribbean.
Okay.
I think Billy Ocean sang Caribbean Queen.
Correct.
But that did not sway me in any way. I still go with Caribbean.
Yeah. Caribbean
Queen. I didn't have quite the same ring to it, but still, that's the correct pronunciation. Yeah. Hey, by the way, Aslan, real quick, do you sound okay? You sound a little like, just in my ears anyway, you sound a little, I don't know, like drive-through-ish.
Drive-through-ish. Oh, yeah. It's I'm using the good laptop, which is too good for the software that we use, so we probably both sound terrible, but in reality, it actually sounds great. Like, it sounds terrible as we record this, as we do kind of like a behind-the-scenes pep talk in the huddle right now for everybody to hear.
Sure.
But
sure.
Rest assured, your dulcet tones are going out as clear and pure as ever. It's just
obviously that's fine, but I wanted to make sure people got to hear you too.
Okay. Yeah, I'm all right.
Good.
All right. All right, Corey, so before we get to hoops, because we are driven by football by and large, and I have no problem with that, we hinted at it on the last show that we did last week, which we recorded on Thursday as I was leaving Tampa to come back to Tallahassee, and we put it out that same afternoon. Maxwell Gibbs joke that, hey, guys, since you're actually releasing a show in the middle of the day, that means that something's going to break immediately after, to which I was like, nah, we're not Seminole headlines. Like, you guys had that terrible misfortune. It wouldn't follow you to two shows. You haven't smited the broadcast gods that bad, Corey. But David Johnson, Tennessee running backs coach, was with Mike Norvell in Memphis for a few years. Originally, I think, was brought on to be receivers coach at Tennessee, but then T. Martin came home, if you will, and he became running backs coach and recruiting coordinator, and that is the job he will have in Tallahassee. The staff is complete. Mike Norvell went ahead and said, you give me 10 guys I can hire, I'm going to hire 10. I'm going to stimulate the economy. So shout out to him. Good first step.
It is, and you look over my man David Johnson's history. I do like the fact that he was at Tennessee 2 years because that's big boy football. I know Tennessee hasn't been any good in a couple decades, but you're recruiting against other teams. You're recruiting against the same schools you'll be recruiting against at Florida State. And he also coached a couple positions. I'm not, look, man, I just, when it comes to running back coaches, you need to be able to recruit.
Right.
That's the job. That's the job description. I don't need you to tell Cam Akers, hey man, right there, you need to try to break a tackle. Yeah, man, that's God-given stuff. You're not. There are some things, obviously protection-wise and route running. I'm not saying they don't do anything at all at practice. They do, but you need a guy that can recruit. That's the deal. That's the job description. That's priority number one. So I like that he's been in that system for a few years where he's had to recruit at a level like this. Norvell obviously likes him. A little bit, he was a high school coach for like 11 years. Like, I think he was a high school coach, and then he went to, let's see right here, went to Millsaps.
Oh, yeah, Jackson, Mississippi, stand-up, Division III football in the, I don't even know what conference they were in. But, yeah, the majors, the Millsap majors.
So he started his career at John F. Kennedy High School, wide receivers coach and tight ends coach and offensive coordinator. He did that for 3 years. Then he went to Walker High School, both in Louisiana, and was the offensive coordinator, wide receivers coach there for 5 years. Then was at Millsap for 4. Then he was the head coach at St. Augustine High School for 3. And then Tulane for 3 or 4. Then Memphis, then Tennessee. So he's been around. He's been in the South. And, man, I know it's probably a lot to ask, but wouldn't it be sweet to open up that New Orleans pipeline again?
Yeah, probably not happening, but yeah, shoot for the moon. I get it.
Right? I mean, hey, give it a go. They can't all go to LSU, but yeah, New Orleans has been pretty darn good to Florida State over the years. Most notably Warwick Dunn, but you had Travis Minor. I'm forgetting a million of them, but New Orleans has been Sean Jackson, I think, was from New Orleans or at least from Louisiana. They've done really well with running backs from out of that state. But yeah, try to get some guys out of Louisiana. That'd be cool. Not the easiest thing to do, probably. But yeah, so I think, again, more than anything, it's a full staff, which is good. It's a positive step. But it's a diverse staff in the sense that a lot of guys with a lot of different backgrounds and a lot of different coaching stops. He wasn't hired at Tennessee because he's not a good coach. Jeremy Pruitt wanted him. It's big business at Tennessee. Jeremy Pruitt needed to win now, and he thought that guy was a good fit for him. And turns out Tennessee was, pretty decent this year. Yeah. So anyway, it's just I think when you look at it on the whole as a running backs coach, he's also going to be the recruiting coordinator, I think, right?
Yes, correct.
There you go. So that's priority number one, recruiting coordinator. And let's see if he can open up the pipeline to Louisiana.
Talman Gardner and Paul Irons, some other famous boot state products. I think Paul Irons actually did go to St. Augustine High School, which is where David Johnson was. Maybe we can catch up on what he thought about Paul Irons. Maybe he saw him growing up in Pee Wee football or something like that. They didn't cross paths at St. Augustine, but it's a small world. You know how that goes. So
Sure.
Yeah, man, that's cool. It's a good hire. So I think Ira in his ever Velvet Hammer, awfully polite way. Even though he's from South Florida, he's got more like Southern in him than he does Yankee, like I do. Like I'm just mean to people, not like on purpose, but if you gotta be mean, you gotta be mean. But Ira is just like, hey man, I heard you and Corey talking about on the show about the whole Power 5 thing, and if he hires this Johnson guy, that means he'll have 8 of the 10 guys on staff will have had Power 5 experience, and he even made a post on the Tribal Council, I think, to counter program against what I'm trying to put out there. So. But I would say the 2 guys that don't have Power 5 experience are your 2 most important coaches, at least with what you have to fix here, which is your defensive coordinator and your offensive line coach. But I'm optimistic. I will say optimistic. It's a good staff, young guys, different geographical regions, diversity, all sorts of good stuff. All the boxes checked off, and now the real work begins. And unfortunately, we don't get to see it. We don't really get to see them train and the dietary changes. I hope they do. It'd be really nice if they share some like before after stuff. Like show us what you're doing to these kids, and not even me and you or the media, but I know the fans would eat that sort of stuff up. But we'll see, man.
What, show them working out, like doing the drills during the off season and stuff? You're talking about?
How about like in April, like towards the end of spring football, you get a before and after photo of Brady Scott. And Brady Scott's got, 2 bowling balls attached to his upper shoulders now, and he can't twist his head around because he's got these like huge traps. or,
Right.
James Blackman now weighs 215 pounds. But who knows if he'll be here? Who knows? I guess we'll find out soon enough on some of these things because school does start as we record this program, or rather, as you're listening to this program. We're recording this on a Sunday night, cutting into my Golden Globes viewing. Thanks, Corey.
Sorry, buddy. My fault.
So we'll see who's enrolled, who's not enrolled, and probably some more names will be trickling into that transfer portal, I would imagine. But, it just opens up slots and opportunities for other guys. And, I'm excited, man. I am. I think this is, everything is lining up nicely. I know you don't want to buy in fully because, we've been here, done that, we've gotten burnt. But, I'm going to dream a little dream. Think this team's going to be ready to rock. Beat West Virginia, and then it's sky's the limit. Sky's the limit, man.
All right, buddy. I'm glad you're excited. That's a new theme for this show, is you actually being excited and being the positive one. But no, man, I've said it. I think he's done for a first month or 5 weeks on the job. It's about as impressive as you could hope for. And I was right in the sense that there are eight guys from Power 5 spots. Now, a lot of them had connections with him from the past at Memphis. But guess what? That's how
life works, man.
Work.
That's how I'm here, Corey. That's how you're here. That's how we're both here, buddy.
Exactly right. I wouldn't be a Warchant if I didn't have a previous relationship with Ira, probably. And I might not have even ended up in Tallahassee if I didn't know Jim Lamar back from the day before he hired me at the Democrat. So that's how all that works. And you're familiar, you're comfortable with these people. I get it. And it is a positive that your coaches that you're comfortable with were so appealing to other coaches that they went out and kind of proved their bones a little bit. I will say, man, the offensive line almost to me is everything. Figure it out. And I only brought that up because you brought up the strength and conditioning. And I remember there was a picture on Twitter, maybe right before the playoff game, where it was a picture of the LSU offensive lineman, the starting offensive line. Yeah. Did you see that?
Oh, yeah. All
and I think
oiled
they're
up.
Not like shirtless.
Yeah.
They didn't have to be shirtless. That's fine. But they are enormous. They look like an NFL offensive line. They all look like 330 pounds of just – it looks like somebody just somehow fashioned skin around bricks. Just a bunch of like a human skin brick truck. That's what they all look like. It's insanity. And then you look at Florida State's guys, and they're big dudes for humans. They're big dudes for being on the earth. But they're not big dudes when it comes to being a dominant college offensive line. It's like, man – figure it out. Feed them 6 bowls of spaghetti a day if you have to. I don't care if they're fat. Get some 340-pound dudes that can move a little bit and look like they have skin wrapped around bricks in their stomach and in their chest and their torso. Because folks, go try to look at it. I don't know what are you going to type in LSU shirtless? I don't know what Google search you would do.
Go on Twitter and do that. Don't search at Google. Go on Twitter and search on twitter.com. Just type in LSU shirtless. I'm sure that'll pop up.
But it's incredible. It's and then again, I know I joked about it on Twitter a few times and more than a few times on this show, but when you look at what happened to Landon Dickerson in 6 months or 5 months, it's astounding.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're doing. I don't know if it's on the up and up. I don't care. Literally just figure it out and get these offensive linemen looking like big time behemoths that can move, that can be road graders, that can move people out of the way. That would be a really nice change of pace from what we've seen for like the last half decade or so.
There's also an inherent risk that you will see a photo of Ed Orgeron shirtless if you search LSU shirtless on Twitter. So there is that too. But yeah, barrel chested. He's like a young Chuck Amato almost, Good for him.
Yeah.
Good for you, Edo. Hey, Corey, let's take a question. Somebody posted this on Warchant, NYC_Nole_2. Now, I don't know if this is our friend who used to have Paul Gleason as an avatar who's from New York City. Maybe he's got a burner account, but says he's a new joiner, first-time poster. We will have a Renegade Express later on this week. We'll have like 3 shows this week probably, which is what we'll do during the offseason until spring football starts. As always, if something big breaking happens, we'll do an emergency pod or something like that. But he does say, hello, Corey and Aslan. He said you first. New joiner, first-time poster. As we look at the 2020 schedule with a potentially better roster than previously anticipated, which games do you feel we need to win in order to build program momentum? What are some realistic outcomes that would change the narrative surrounding Florida State? Say, playing Clemson tough into the fourth quarter. Thanks, and you guys need to make a New York City trip happen. Maybe next year. Maybe we'll go to the Pinstripe Bowl. We'll be there.
Let's hope not. Let's hope we're frying bigger fish than the Pinstripe Bowl. Is that even a thing anymore? Did they play that this year?
I don't think. I mean, I could have sworn people said it was on the table for Florida State earlier this year, but I don't remember who. I haven't seen. Michigan State played Wake Forest. Yeah, it still happened. Michigan State.
Oh, okay.
Won.
I didn't see a second of that game, so I didn't know where that was played. Yeah, I would say beat West Virginia. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's just
absolutely 3 years in a row of losing the opener. Got to stop it. Stop.
And West Virginia is not great. Right. They're a Power 5 team. They have players. They have scholarship players, and I'm sure they have some talent. But they're not great. So beat them. Go beat them. I think there's 3 games that are going to be really tough. And that's obviously Clemson, Florida, and at Boise. Those I think you start the season thinking, okay, very best case scenario, you want to go 1-2, but there's a good chance you go 0-3. I think if you can beat West Virginia and win at Boise, man, you're on a rocket ship at that point.
Yeah,
you're not winning 11 games, but you're on a rocket ship where if you can beat this team, nobody on this team has ever felt. Do they even know what it's like? None of them do. None of them know what it's like to have an above 500 record. Do they?
Well, Emmett Rice. I think some of the guys are still on. Emmett Rice on the 16 team, and that's about the only one I can recall.
I guess they've had maybe this past year were they 4-3 at one point. At some point.
I think they were above 500 at one point in Willie's first year too. Like after they beat Northern Illinois, maybe they squeaked to 3-2 or something like that.
Yeah, but but nobody felt good. I mean, none of these guys have been on a team where there was genuine hope after week 1.
Yeah, no one's left the month of September feeling good. We've never turned the calendar to October and been like, you know what, we still got a shot this ACC Atlantic thing. It's crazy.
Or be ranked.
Yeah,
it just hasn't happened. So that would be that would be a really really good sign is if you can beat West Virginia. I don't care how you do it, really, honestly, at this point, just find a way to win a game, and then if you can go out to Boise. Which, again, Boise's a really good program, man, and that's a tough team to beat. But, you obviously shouldn't shy away. It's not like you're going to be overwhelmed by their talent at all. Like, you blew the game last year against them. I mean, you should feel pretty confident going into that game that you can play with those guys, and hopefully you play with some hunger because you let that one get away this past year. But find a way to win those 2 games, and then, 8 wins is certainly on 8-9 wins is certainly on the table. But I don't know. I think Clemson, maybe that's a good litmus test, but I just don't see it. If you can find a way to keep it close with Clemson, that'd be great. But we're also looking, what were we, 10 months looking ahead now? We have no idea what either one of those teams will look like in October when they play.
Well, yeah, certainly that's probably that is a litmus test, as you just said. I mean, if you can hang with Clemson just after, we'll talk about. If they lose by 10 points to Clemson, we'll talk about they got outscored. I don't know, like 95 to 20 or something the last 2 times, the previous 2 times they played. So that would definitely be a huge boon kind of thing. But yeah, just win the opener. Win the opener because you haven't done that since 2016. And golly, if you go like 2-0, just walk out of September just feeling good. Even with Jimbo in 16, the season was, for all intents and purposes, pretty much over at the end of September or in mid-September in 2016. Like this, October hasn't meant anything really for this program in like 5 years. That's crazy. It's crazy. So
yeah,
let's fix that.
So, again, that would also help obviously in recruiting because you're going to have guys. That recruiting is sped up so much that most of these guys, it used to be back in the day, back when Warchant started, back near the end of Bowden's tenure and even in Jimbo's tenure, the guys weren't really deciding on official visits and deciding where to go necessarily until December or January. Well, now that's been sped up to September and October. And if you're 5-1, heaven forbid Florida State got 5-1. If you got 5-1, all of a sudden that helps almost. It's so immense how much it helps in recruiting. You almost can't. It's almost indescribable how much it would help recruiting when you actually have a good record to go along with what else you're trying to sell. When there's hope, not just from what the people are saying, but on the field. So if you get off to a good start and just see what that does to your recruiting class, that would be great too.
Switching gears now to the big highlight from the weekend, Florida State adding another victory over a top 10 program on the road to their resume, 78-65 thrashing of Louisville. Caught me by surprise. I know you ended up writing a column about it to kind of say that I guess maybe we shouldn't be surprised by these things, but just what an absolute, I thought Dallin Cuff, friend of the program, ESPN analyst, I said really good was, it's, Florida State usually wears guys down. Everyone knows about the whole 18-strong thing and junkyard defense and all these sort of things that, Leonard has kind of built this program around. But it's just like Florida State just executed. I mean, it wasn't anything special. It wasn't their depth wearing things out. They just executed so well on both ends of the floor. Louisville had, I think Dallin was saying something on the telecast where something like, I don't know, like maybe less than 15% of possessions Louisville goes into zone, and like they had to try to rely on the zone towards the end of the second half to try to kind of spark something, and they got, I think, to maybe the under 8 media timeout and maybe made it a 7-point game, and it got a little bit dicey, if you will, if you're overly anxious about those sort of things. But I mean, MJ Walker, huge game off the bench. Trent, I tweeted out or put in the game thread. It was a quiet 20 points from him. It seems like just one of those games that really, it's January, but man, you see the way Florida State played, and you think, and it's one of those things where if everything clicks for them, and I think we saw to a certain degree what they can look like if everything clicks, it's a really, really explosive and potentially like championship caliber team, whether we're talking about the conference or something crazy in March.
Yeah, I think what that game did for me, I didn't think they were going to win it. Number one, I didn't know that MJ was going to play. And without MJ, it would have been a real chore to win that game. But maybe just a little bit, it raises what I think the ceiling for the team is. I just thought that, they had those three guards scored 59 points. They just destroyed Louisville's guards. And Chris Mack even said as much after the game, the Louisville coach, who's now lost to Leonard, I think 3 straight years. Ever since he boat raced Jonathan Isaac in the NCAA tournament, Leonard's kind of owned Chris Mack. But anyway, he said that our guards just got manhandled, and he's like they're long, they're physical, they're talented, they're great athletes. He said all the right things about Florida State, but he's like they also just are really tough. They out-toughed us. And that's the thing that really can't be measured when it comes to somebody like Trent Forrest. Like, yeah, he wasn't the star of the game necessarily because that was MJ. But then you look up and he had 20 and 6. It just was made a lot of big shots in the second half. Yeah. He's just Trent Forrest. That's just what he does.
Including a three-pointer, didn't hesitate on it. He was wide open, but you're like, man, you got to knock this down. And he squared up and knocked it down.
I think he's got 10 or 11 this year already, which is already a career high. So you look at that and you're like, okay, man, that was really impressive on both ends of the floor. Mm-hmm. Patrick Williams, who's probably, you would say, their most talented player, had 2 points, and they still won at Louisville by 13. I wasn't sure. I didn't think that was possible. But Devin Vassell's really good. And yeah, they executed really well, man. They got some guys that can get into some pockets of a zone. Like, yeah, Louisville doesn't want to go zone. But Chris Mack thought he had no choice because Trent Forrest was just bullying his guards and getting to wherever he wanted and just shooting over them. So he's like, all right, we got to take that away. But then Florida State does have just enough shooting, especially when they're shooting well. They can really shoot you out of a zone. And with the way Walker was shooting, now he's not always going to hit 5 or 6 threes a game. But when he's on, and he's had a few of these moments in his career last year at Miami where he can make 5 or 6 or 7 in a row. He's just a really, really talented shooter, and so is Vassell. So you got 2 guys that can shoot the ball well. I still think, look, man, the Wednesday game is really interesting to me because now all of a sudden, Florida State went in there playing the no respect card and was hungry. Everybody expected Louisville to win, and they took kind of the fight to Louisville. Well, now there's a good chance by the time people are listening to this, Florida State might be a top 10 team. Like the rankings come out later on Monday. A lot of teams lost this weekend. They just went on the road at Louisville. They're 13-2. So there's a good, I think they're 12-1. They lost the game. They're 13-1 in their last 14 games. ever since the opening loss. So they're playing really well. So there's a chance they might be number 9 in the country. Okay, now you're still a very young team. You have one senior that plays. How are you going to handle going to Wake Forest, who you're more talented than? But again, it's college basketball. Look around. Nobody's head and shoulders more talented than anyone else. And so you go to Wake Forest, and now you're the hunted. You're the number 9 team, number 10 team in the country, and they're going to play harder than they've played all season because you're one of those signature wins for them. So how do you handle that? I think that's a really unique. That's going to be a really unique test for them, for a young team and an inexperienced team on Wednesday. But just the win over Louisville again was just really impressive. It was really impressive to see that.
Yeah. Wake Forest coming off a win over Pittsburgh by 4. I was absolutely surprised. It just felt like, and I mean, obviously it was really super early, but I think Louisville's first 5 points was like a slam dunk, and Nora knocked down a 3-pointer. That guy was unconscious the whole game, but he was pretty much the only guy that could produce for them. But it felt like one of those things where, oh no, hold on to your butts here. It might get ugly, but I mean, just the way they played again. Just MJ coming off the bench, Trent doing what he does. I thought Raekwon Evans looked pretty good in limited action.
Yeah.
Malik Osborne flashed quite a bit, and and to your point about MJ just kind of streaky, and that's kind of who he is. I don't really think it's going to change. I mean, I wouldn't expect MJ to be a guy that's going to hit 4 or 5 3-pointers every single game. But like if he's off, like you have Anthony Polite, and if Anthony Polite's going to be off and MJ's off, like Devin will probably be able to step up. It's just there's so many options, and it just goes and speaks to Leonard's ability to recruit these guys. And I think you were talking about it on the show last week when Josh Pastner and Georgia Tech lost and were in town, just about how difficult I can't imagine how difficult it is to get 10 kids to be like, yeah, man, you're going to play like 17, 18 minutes. You're never going to go out there and play 32 minutes in this system. It's just not going to happen. And everybody buys into it. And look at here, 78-65 over Louisville. Take that. A former number 1 team. And just let's go.
And they're like I think they're 52-10 in their last 62 games. Leonard's getting close to being one of the top 5 all-time winningest coaches in the ACC. I mean, it's when you take a step back, because we're in it, you know what I mean? Well, especially me, just because I've been doing it now for 12 years, covering this basketball team. And there have been some downs. There's been some real valleys to go along with the peaks. And when you're in it as much as I've been in it, you kind of just get lost in the minutia sometimes, in the day-to-day, in the year-to-year. But when you step back and look at the totality of the program he's built, where I say people are surprised. Nobody is stunned when Florida State reaches a Sweet 16. Nobody is stunned when they go beat Louisville on the road or beat a Duke. That's where his program is now, where he's got it into a place where I think you could call it a legitimate top 20 program. And it's not a fluke. I mean, this is the 4th year in a row now. And next year, he's got 2 badasses coming in. Maybe the 2 biggest ones that he's ever recruited to come in to be wing players to go along with, you hope, maybe a Patrick Williams and a Devin Vassell and an MJ Walker. And now you're looking at, well, wow, golly, this might be the most talented team he's ever had in his 20th season. It's just really, I think when it's all said and done and he retires, and I think I'm not going to, maybe I will. I was going to say I'm not going to lead the charge to name the court after him. Not until Mickey Andrews gets his
Road,
honor,
street, statue, whatever. Yeah.
Whatever it is. But I think we're heading that way. I think Leonard's heading maybe towards the Hall of Fame if he keeps this up for another 3 or 4 years. You're talking about a guy that's, won a ton of games at places that don't win a ton of basketball games. It's just when you step back and see what this program has become, it's truly remarkable. And again, what's so cool about it, again, I know we're not a basketball show, but I think people listening to this, a basketball show necessarily, but I think people listen to this appreciate what Leonard has done. It's so rare for a guy to do what he did. For 6 years, they don't make the tournament. A couple of, Tony Douglas breaks his hand. Alexander Johnson gets ejected ridiculously at Duke. Things like that kept happening to them, and they would barely miss the tournament. And then they make it 4 years in a row, culminating with an ACC championship, and you're like, all right, man, Florida State has arrived. This is a real basketball program. Then they dip right back down to that valley again, where they don't make the tournament for 4 years in a row, and people think he's lost it. People think the program is kind of waning and falling off a cliff. Not falling off a cliff, but heading in the wrong direction. And he couldn't turn it around. And it really is rare for a guy that builds up a program to have it start to crumble a little bit, to be able to then put the rocks back in and build it even higher. That very rarely happens. For 4 years, they didn't make the tournament.
Yeah.
And then they not even with Bacon and Beasley. And now they were freshmen, and it's not easy, but they had some stretches in that season where they were just awful. I think they had a 5 or 6 game losing streak. And then Jonathan Isaac comes. I'm not going to say he's the guy that saved Leonard Hamilton's career. He did not. I'm not going to put that on him. But he resurrected the program in the sense that all of a sudden, wow, man, you've got a top 10 kid, a lottery pick, number 6 pick overall, a guy that plays hard on both ends of the floor. And I think that team, even though they only got to the second round, they're still stacking on top of what that team did. And now they're to a point where they expect to win at Louisville in year 4 of this turnaround. And then next year, you have to assume they're going to be you have to think they're going to be just as good if the right people stay. And these 2 guys are as good as they're supposed to be, Calhoun and Barnes. You're looking at a loaded team again for year 5 of this turnaround. It's just, again, it doesn't happen a lot. And I think it does need to be appreciated that, and I never thought Leonard should be fired. I was never in that boat, but I kind of got it where, like, okay, I get why people think this is over. Like, it's not going to get any better than this. And then look where we are. Like I said, 52-10 in their last 62 games.
Yeah, I was guilty. I was probably like, yeah, man, let's get Shaka Smart. Let's get somebody young and up and coming, and Texas is ready to run him out of Austin. So what do I know? But no, it's really been nothing short of impressive, and it's an incredibly likable team. They're easy to root for. Ham's Twitter is the best coaching Twitter in the ACC, maybe the entire country. It's fantastic. And speaking of Twitter, Dick Vitale, who was on the call and nobody seems to really like, said that the most impressive team Saturday was Florida State. So everybody taking notice.
Did you say nobody seems to like?
Yes. Well, other than Duke fans, I guess.
No, I mean, the problem with Vitale, and I wrote a column about him a couple of years ago about something he did really nice for my dad. Well, heck, I'll say it here. So my dad met him, this would have been 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago. They were on a flight together, and they were sitting across the aisle from each other going to Lexington. My dad was going to talk to a hospital because that's the kind of law he practiced, insurance law for representing hospitals. Anyway, that didn't really even matter. But he was flying to Lexington. Vitale was flying to go to do the Kentucky game. And my dad was just being my dad. He started a conversation. He's funny and he's boisterous like Vitale, and they got along and they started talking. And Vitale goes, "Hey man, where are you staying tonight?" And he goes, "I don't know, the downtown Marriott." He goes, "Oh, that's where I'm staying." He goes, "Do me a favor, John." He goes, "Meet me down in the lobby at 5:30." And he goes, "Have you ever been to a game at Rupp?" And my dad's like, no, I haven't. I've always wanted to, but no, I haven't. And he goes, "Well, do me a favor. Be in the lobby of my hotel," which happened to be his hotel, "tonight at 5:30.
Can you try to give us a Dick Vitale voice, Corey? I feel like it'll make the story so much better. John, baby, what's up? Have you been to Rupp Arena?
Beer. No, I can't do that. So he says, be in the lobby at 5:30. So Vitale comes out of the elevator at 5:30. My dad's there. There's a lot of people that crowd Vitale because he's even more famous probably back then in 2000, 2001. They circle around him. He's signing autographs. He's like, "Hey, John, come with me." They get in the car, the town car, whatever, that drives him to the game. He gets my dad in. And then as he's talking with, I guess at that time, Tubby would have been the coach for Kentucky. He's like, "Hey, Tubby, this is my friend John Clark. Say hello." And they meet. And Vitale just did that for the whole night. Yeah. Like he got seats for my dad, like three rows behind the Kentucky bench. And then afterwards, they went back to the hotel. And it's like he knew my dad for 35 minutes. And I interviewed Vitale because he was calling the Notre Dame Florida State game maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and I told him that story. And he didn't remember it. And I'm like, "Man, it doesn't matter that you remember it. It matters that my dad remembered it." Yeah. And it's just, but he's supposedly just the nicest person in the world, Vitale, like genuinely a nice person. I can speak, well, I guess from secondhand experience. My dad experienced it, but he was just overwhelmingly nice and polite. And John Clark couldn't do anything for Dick Vitale at all. But Vitale still did all that for him. And I say all that to say that, yeah, man, it's hard to listen to Vitale do a call. I love the dude. I love what he did for my dad. He has been great for college basketball. But, man, he just won't talk about the game. He'll talk about Clemson and Ohio State. He'll talk about – it's like sometimes it feels like the game is secondary to what he wants to talk about.
Yeah, I think what irks people, especially if you're a Florida State fan, is just kind of like the lack of respect. because they're not a blue blood program. And, he's usually – so that's the thing. Like, Dick Vitale's usually covering Michigan State or Duke or, whoever's, Kentucky. And not to say Florida State's – Florida State's obviously not those programs, but Florida State is obviously starting to build something that's really – comparable to on a certain level to these programs. So I think there is still a bit, and he probably knows that the people watching this that are Florida State fans are not, they're probably fans of the university as opposed to being like hardcore basketball fans. So I think some of the stuff he says kind of irks the fans, but I get it, man. It's not for everybody. I don't particularly enjoy him, but I'm not one of these guys that just is like, oh, I got to mute the TV and sync up Gene or else my ears are going to bleed. But
no, I'm not quite that. I'm not that guy either. But I could understand how it'd be a little frustrating to listen to at times. But just know he can't do it forever. But not only that, he's just a genuinely good person from all accounts. And what's funny is if you go and watch like old ESPN clips from like the 80s, all he does is talk about basketball. Like he still did the PTP and he's a diaper dandy and all that stuff. But he still would break down the game and analyze what was happening. And now it became, in my opinion, a little way too much shtick. Yeah. But still, good dude. And it doesn't matter. Florida State's 13-2.
Yeah. Watching film's tough. Shtick's easy, Who wants to watch film and break stuff down, Just point out the obvious. That's what he does.
I don't watch film. I just talk like I talk. You know that. I'm like I guess I'm the Vitale. Am I the Vitale of the Florida State beat?
No, man, because you have like a breadth of knowledge, a wealth of knowledge when it comes to Florida State, and really incisive overview and insight and opinion on things. Truly, really. No, man.
You say that, but I've been racking my brain literally the whole show to try to think of other New Orleans guys.
I say, man, Talman Gardner, Paul Irons. Who else from New Orleans? Kyle Myers, represent.
Yeah, we're not really hitting the top shelf here.
Jeff Bernard, I think, is a Louisiana guy. I don't know if
he was a Louisiana kid. Yeah, Dulac Guerrier.
Was that a real player?
I can't make that up. You think I made up the name Dulac Guerrier?
I don't know, man. I never heard that one. I'm trying. Who else?
He didn't make a huge impact on the program, but I'm pretty sure he was from New Orleans. So what? Isn't that an awesome name, Dulac?
I mean, Patrick Robinson plays for the Saints. Does that count? P.J. Williams plays for the Saints. Guess Mario Edwards plays for the Saints.
Well, they don't play for him anymore this year.
Touche.
That was not a great ending for those two cornerbacks.
Or Dalvin, really, man. Good gosh. My God.
He got lucky there.
Ball security, third, fourth, and short, just not his cup of tea, but everything else.
I mean, they know that I was almost screaming at my TV. It's like, man, they know they decided at halftime they're not going to let Dalvin Cook beat them.
Yeah.
And then so the first 4 or 5 drives the Vikings had in the second half or in the fourth quarter, it's like you're running into an 11-man front. You have to trust your average slappy quarterback to make a throw, and finally he did there at the in overtime. That was a great throw to what's the guy's name?
Kyle Rudolph.
No, the guy they got him down to the 2.
Was it
Thielen?
Oh, Thielen. Yeah, Thielen.
Yeah, that was a great throw over his shoulder. But yeah, man, it's like, man, let Kirk Cousins throw. Hey, so where did you watch the Patriots game?
At the crib. Watch at the crib.
Were you excited?
Yeah. I mean, I tweeted about it. It was really weird. I hate Tom Brady. I hate the Patriots. I really don't like Bill Belichick to a large degree. Just watching him be uncomfortable after the game was quite enjoyable. I was a big-time 49ers fan. I was a huge Joe Montana fan. There was a time there for 3 or 4 years where I ran a really big crusade to defend the honor of Joe Clifford Montana as the best quarterback ever. And, just after like the 5th Super Bowl, it fell on deaf ears. I always remember there's a guy that covers the Niners. He used to cover him for like the Santa Clara Press, and now he covers him for NBC Sports out there, like in San Francisco. Matt Mayoko, like he's like Mr. 49er. And I remember like I had this whole big image, like a mug shot of Brady and Montana side by side with their stats in the Super Bowl. And they were pretty comparable through like the first 4 Super Bowls. I mean, Montana obviously was 4-0 though, and Brady had lost 1 or 2. With the Giants and such, but he ran for more yards than Brady. He had more running touchdowns than Brady. I think he had better. Anyhow, I'm like, dude, help me out here. Montana is still better than Brady, and he was like, nah, dude, sorry, but he's not. No. And I'm like,
and it was such a different time too back then. Yeah. Like you could have like dynasties in the 80s. Like the team stuck together. You got great players and they stayed together. Yeah. Now the Patriots, like who's like their second most
tenured player, right?
Yeah, tenured or venerable player from the Patriots of this decade. It is
Matthew Slater, like their special teams ace. But yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
It's Brady, man. And he's, other than Randy Moss, he's never had incredible receivers to throw to. Yeah. And that was just 1 year or 2 years, I think. It's just, and I'm not a big fan of the guy either because of what he did to my heart a few years ago. But still, I wonder. I mean, he can't end his career on a pick six.
Why didn't he retire last year? Come on, man. Like, you won a good Super Bowl against a good team in the Rams. Just right off into the sunset with your beautiful supermodel wife and your healthy family. But yeah, he got greedy. Came back.
It's hard to turn that off, man. It's hard. I mean, it's hard to turn that off.
We know how it is. We know how it is being,
yeah, man. Imagine Gene telling you, "Are you deciding you didn't want to do a podcast anymore?" That'd be hard, man. You'd get up some mornings and just start talking into your phone, just recording your thoughts.
Yeah.
Just to get it out there. It's hard to let it go. It's hard to let it go. So maybe he'll go play with the Colts or the Cowboys.
But here we are. We live in a world where Ryan Tannehill beat Tom Brady in Foxborough, and Kirk Cousins beats Drew Brees in the Superdome. I hate the NFL. Like, I love it, but I hate it. I mean, because I guess these things are cool that they can happen, like any given Sunday kind of stuff. But good grief, how does that happen? How do the Saints lose to the Vikings? Crazy.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. But that's where they should have just played Taysom Hill the whole time at quarterback.
Clearly. So where were you with the Patriots game?
I was at a buddy's house in his basement, drinking a little bit, and it's just crazy when they had that pick six to end the game, like the whole basement just exploded, like the Falcons had just won the Super Bowl. It's hard to and I think that's a great illustration of how tired the rest of the country is of the effing Patriots.
Absolutely.
We're just tired of it, man. We're just thank heavens that we don't have to watch them in another Super Bowl, at least this year. But it's just you keep waiting for the final shoe to drop. And so that means next year they'll all come back and they'll probably go 15-1.
I don't think so, man. I think it's got to be over. I mean, we're all scared to say it because we've predicted it so many times prior, but that felt it's not going to end pretty. Like, these things don't ever end gracefully. Joe Montana got his freaking elbow exploded by Leonard Marshall, like in the '90 NFC Championship game. Like, these things never end all lovey-dovey. So, we'll see how it goes. But I saw, like, to your point, I saw this funny pie chart, and it had like a little sliver that was maybe like 3% of it, and it was like people celebrating the Patriots' loss, and it was like 3% was Titans fans. And then the rest of it was like America, just because they hate the Patriots. Like, it was,
Patriot haters. Yeah, absolutely.
So suck on that. And I don't know. Maybe Clemson will assume that throne someday. Because Alabama kind of has it right now, right? When it comes to college, I think people still like Clemson.
I think Clemson's getting right there. Clemson's definitely in the discussion, and it doesn't help that Dabo keeps playing the nobody respects us card. That's getting really old. So, and I like Dabo, and I like I have tremendous respect for the program he's built, but that stuff is getting, I mean, they won that game and then played the played the Aretha Franklin song in the locker room after they beat Ohio State. Yeah. And it's like, man, enough with it. You're loaded with All-Americans, 5-star All-Americans. You're an awesome program. We get it. I mean, where were you in 2014 when Jimbo was his team was getting just destroyed each week? His team was number 4 in the country at one point, and they were the only undefeated team in the country. And Dabo wasn't speaking out then, but now all of a sudden it's like, mother, I can't believe that the rest of the country doesn't respect the ACC. It's like, man, it's been this way forever. It's been this way forever. You still got in the playoff, and you're still awesome, and you're probably going to win it. Well, I don't know. What do you think about that game?
I don't know. We'll talk about another show. We're at like the 43-minute mark.
You're right. It's time to wrap it up. But I am really looking forward to that game.
Okay. All right. Tigers.
I really am.
Tigers.
Yeah, I think it's. I think I'll be rooting for LSU, just mainly, and it's hard to root for LSU. It's not like I'm rooting for some young upstart, some unbelievable underdog. It's LS freaking U. But yeah, I'm a little bit sick of the Clemson Dabo thing now. Yeah, it was cute for a while. It was commendable for a while, and now I'm about ready for it to be done, which is good because apparently they have a terrible recruiting class this year. Is that right?
I don't think so. They had like 3 of the top 5 or something, something like that.
Well, whatever.
It's crazy. It is
Whatever.
crazy.
I guess I got bad information on that one.
The Roy bus or whatever he calls it, right? The rest of y'all bus. That's what they're going to take
Yeah.
the national game. Number one recruiting class, 6 5-stars. 6.
That's what Clemson has.
Yeah. The number 1 overall prospect, the defensive tackle Brian Brees. And the number 2 overall prospect, DJ Ugalele, who's a quarterback. So.
Oh, that's good. I was wondering if their string of quarterbacks was going to end.
Nope.
I'm glad it's not. I'm glad that they're going to keep that alive.
By the way,
great. That's great news.
I meant to mention it on the show. The whole, skin wrapped around bricks, that could be like the SWAB principle. That'd be your acronym. SWAB, SWAB. Skin wrapped around brick. You could start your own, your own training table or whatever.
I think that'll catch on. I definitely think that'll catch on. That's not a weird, gross image to think about at all.
No. All right, man. We're done for the day. We'll be back at some point later this week. We'll definitely do at least one more show. We'll do a Renegade Express for sure. If anything else important happens, we'll be here. We'll come back, and we'll also maybe try to start lining up some guests. I know the boss man wants to line up guests. I don't have a very deep Rolodex, but we'll try. We'll see what we can do. Make y'all happy. He's Corey. I'm Aslan. Thanks for listening to Wake Up Warchant, presented by Zaxby's.
Zaxby's Caribbean Jerk Chicken is just like a vacation in the tropics, only without the sunburn. Or the dive-bombing seagulls. Or all of that pesky sand.
How'd it get in there?
Well, at least it tastes like the tropics. Enjoy our famous chicken tossed in a tropical blend of spicy habanero, fruity mango, and exotic island spices. The Caribbean Jerk boneless wings and the new filet sandwich meal. 2 more reasons you'll get a kick out of Zaxby's.